whisper in my soul, calling me back to the memory of the truth I used to know. I was walking in the shadows, now I rise into the light. Christ within me always waited for my heart to see what's right. No more fear, no more hiding. I'm returning to my name. I am love, I am divine. I am rising once again. I awaken to the Christ that lives in me. I accept it, I embrace it. This is who I'm born to be. I am shining, I am glowing with the power of the source. I identify with glory. I am waking up to more. This is who I truly am. Every breath becomes alignment. Every heartbeat speaks my truth. Heaven starts inside my spirit, flowing out in something new. I am whole and I am holy. I am light that fills the dark. I am one with all creation. I am God's eternal spark. Every day I keep repeating every word that makes me free, till this truth becomes my nature, till this Christ becomes my me. I awaken to the Christ that lives in me. I accept it, I embrace it. This is who I'm born to be. I am shining, I am glowing with the power of the source. I identify with glory. I am waking up to more. I awaken. This is who I truly am. I'll keep speaking, I'll keep believing, till this truth becomes my breathing. Christ within me, Christ within me, Christ within me. Awakens now, awakens now. I awaken to the Christ that lives in me. I accept it, I embrace it. This is who I'm born to be. I am shining, I am glowing with the power of the source. I identify with glory. I am waking up to more. I awaken. This is who I truly am. Awaken. Christ in me, forever rising. Forever rising.
Hello, family. Welcome to today's teaching. So we will look at Genesis 5 and 6 together, okay? Because they are often read as two very different things. A long list of human genealogies followed by a story of divine anger and destruction. But when we slow down and observe the language carefully, something else becomes clear. These chapters are not tracing biological reproduction, and they are not announcing a violent God. They are describing what happens when awareness is preserved across generations, while ego gradually becomes the governing center of life. Genesis 5 is not about humans living hundreds of years, no. It is about consciousness repeating itself, stabilizing itself, and completing cycles. Genesis 6 is not about humanity becoming morally evil overnight. It is about egoic imagination, overwhelming awareness, until life itself becomes unsustainable in that state. Notice something important here. Genesis 5 speaks of Adam. Genesis 6 speaks of the man. That shift is deliberate. Adam represents awareness, the original undivided state. The man represents egoic consciousness, identity operating from fear, survival, and separation. As long as awareness quietly governs, life continues. When ego takes over completely, distortion multiplies. This is not judgment, it is diagnosis. Genesis 5 and 6 are explaining why life periodically requires reset, rest, and renewal. Not because God is angry, but because life cannot flourish when ego governs unchecked. In this teaching, we'll explore why Adam does not biologically reproduce, what generations actually mean, how egoic imagination overwhelms perception, why the flood becomes necessary as a reset, not a punishment, and how awareness is preserved even when ego dominates. We are not here to defend scripture or attack it. We are here to read it accurately. Because when these chapters are read as a map of consciousness, the violence disappears, fear dissolves, and the consistency of the text becomes undeniable. So, let's begin slowly, carefully, and without rushing, and allow Genesis 5 and 6 to explain themselves. Let's begin with Genesis 5:1. This is the book of the generations of Adam. In the day that God created man, in the likeness of God made he him. Book record, symbolize record, pattern, unfolding. Generations represent states of consciousness. Adam is awareness or human identity. Likeness of God is source-derived life. Man is awareness expressed through form, egoic, functional identity. Now, notice the precision. It does not say, in the day that God created Adam. It says, Let's go through again. This is the book of the generations of Adam. In the day that God created man. It should have said in the day that God created Adam, right? But it says in the day that God created man. That switch is intentional. Why? Because Genesis 5 is not describing origin. It is describing operation. In the likeness of God made he him. This line is crucial. The likeness is not lost. The image is not revoked. Nothing has fallen ontologically. Even man, egoic consciousness, is still operating within divine life. What changes is not being. What changes is perception. That's why scripture never says the image was destroyed. So, the text is saying, this is the story of awareness as it began to operate through form. Let's look at how this shows up in us, in our everyday life. After seasons of ego, burnout, performance, and fragmentation, something in us remembers. This isn't who I really am. That remembrance is Genesis 5 beginning. Moving on to Genesis 5:2. Male and female created he them and blessed them and called their name Adam. Male and female is awareness and soul integrated. Blessed is empowered life. Called their name Adam is one unified identity. Even after ego emerges, even after division is felt, the name, the identity remains Adam. This is profound. It tells us awareness was never revoked. Union was never undone. Separation was experienced, not enacted. How this shows up in us. Awakening heals inner division. Logic and emotion cooperate. Spirituality becomes embodied. Identity feels whole again. Genesis 5:3. And Adam lived 130 years and begat a son in his own likeness, after his image, and called his name Seth. Lived is experienced. Begat means reproduced a state. In his own likeness is awareness reproducing awareness. Seth is appointed, restored. This is where people assume biology, but watch closely. If Adam were a literal man, where is Eve's role? Because this is not reproduction. This is pattern replication. To beget here means to produce a mode of consciousness similar to the one operating. So, Adam begets Seth is awareness, reproducing stabilized awareness. Why Seth matters? Seth is not a baby replacing Abel. Seth represents awareness recentered after ego violence. Consciousness no longer fragmented. The continuation of the Adamic line. That's why scripture says God has appointed me another seed. Seed here is principle, not sperm. Genesis 5:4-5. And begat sons and daughters. Sons and daughters represent multiple expressions of awareness. Once alignment returns, it multiplies naturally. Awareness expresses itself in many forms: creativity, compassion, insight, wisdom. When you are awake, your life produces healthier relationships, grounded decisions, peaceful presence. Fruit follows awareness. Next, and all the days, and he died. Death here is not physical expiration. It means that mode of consciousness completed its cycle. This is why Enoch does not die. Elijah does not die. Jesus does not remain dead. Because awareness does not terminate. Only mode of operation do. Why the ages are symbolic. The numbers are not biological lifespans. People did not live to be 900 years, 1,000 years. No. The numbers are not biological lifespans. They represent intensity, duration, influence, saturation of a consciousness state. That's why early ages are long, awareness dominant. Later ages shorten, ego fragmentation increases. This aligns perfectly with symbolic reading and collapses under literalism. How this shows up in us. After ego collapses, clarity returns. You don't go back to innocence. You arrive at wisdom. You become matured spiritually. If you read from verse 6 to 20, you see all the generations overview. Rather than reading every name as biology, notice the pattern. Lifespans are long. Violence is absent. God is referred to as God, not distant or wrathful. No curses, no fear, no judgment language. Genesis 5 is a quiet chapter because it represents stability. When awareness leads, life feels expansive. Time feels abundant. Fear recedes. This isn't about literal years. It's about depth of presence. When you live aligned, life doesn't feel rushed. Anxiety loosens. You are not constantly bracing for disaster because awareness stretches experience. We see Enoch from 21 to 24. It says, "What? And Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him." Walked with God means lived in continuous awareness. Was not means ego, identity dissolved. God took him means full union, no fragmentation. Enoch is not about disappearing physically. He represents complete integration. No ego collapse, no violence, no sacrifice. Just awareness so aligned that separation disappears. How this shows up in us. This is the rare but real state where fear of death dissolves. Identity feels light. Presence is constant. You don't leave. The false self simply fades. Let's look at Methuselah. Methuselah's long life symbolizes extended delay before judgment. Judgment here is not punishment. It is truth arriving to reset systems. We often live a long time in misalignment before truth finally breaks through, because grace is patient. In Genesis 5:28-29, we see Noah introduced. It says, "This same shall comfort us concerning our work and toil." Noah represents rest, relief. Comfort is release from strain. Noah represents awareness, ready to reset consciousness, not destroy humanity, but preserve truth while illusion dissolves. How this shows up in us. Eventually, something in us says, "I can't live like this anymore." That's Noah consciousness awakening. Genesis 5:32, "And Noah begat Shem, Ham, and Japheth." 3 sons represents dimensions of human experience prepared for renewal. This sets the stage for Genesis 6-9. Genesis 5 is the quiet return of awareness after ego dominance. Why Genesis 5 looks like reproduction on the surface. Scripture uses familiar language to describe unfamiliar truth. Ancient readers did not have psychological vocabulary, so Scripture used family, birth, naming, lineage to talk about perception, identity, continuity, awareness transmission. Let's move on to Genesis 6. Genesis 6:1, when men began to multiply. Men here is humanity operating from ego identity. Multiply is expansion, replication, scaling. Meaning, unawakened consciousness is no longer isolated. It is spreading, normalizing, and becoming dominant. This is about scale, not sex. On the face of the earth, earth means embodied human experience. Face is what is visible, lived, expressed. Meaning, ego-based consciousness is now shaping daily life, culture, and society. And daughters were born unto them. Daughters here is expressions produced by the soul, not literal women. Meaning, new forms of desire, identity, culture, and expression are emerging from unawakened consciousness. Genesis 6:2, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. Notice the name God capitalized. This tells us the Hebrew underneath is Yahweh, but used in a God context. This is relational life, not abstract source. Sons of God are not angels. Sons of God represent those who carry divine capacity or awareness. Consciousness endowed with higher perception, meaning higher faculties of the mind, reason, imagination, creativity, will, are now operating without alignment. Daughters of men. This represents output of ego identity, fear-based desires, cultural constructs, identity illusions. Meaning, awareness capacities are becoming entangled with ego-produced identity. They took them wives. Marriage here is union, identification, allegiance. Meaning, higher consciousness binds itself to ego-driven desires and systems. Awareness stops leading and it starts serving distortion of all which they chose. Choice without discernment. Meaning, desire, not truth, is now guiding alignment. Genesis 6:3, and the Lord said, my spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. Notice the name shift. The Lord capitalized. Now we are in relational response, not observation. My spirit shall not always strive with man. This does not mean abandonment. Strive here means contend, restrain, hold back consequences. Meaning, life will not indefinitely override misalignment. There is a natural limit to distortion. For that, he also is flesh. Flesh here is identity built on appearance, survival, ego. Meaning, humanity is now identifying almost entirely with surface identity. Yet his days shall be 120 years. This is not a lifespan decree. 120 symbolizes limitation, boundary, mercy through containment. Meaning, distortion is given a boundary, not infinite permission. Life is setting a containment window, not planning distraction. Genesis 6:4. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men which were of old, men of renown. Giants, Nephilim. Nephilim comes from Nephal, to fall, to descend. Meaning, oversized egos, dominant identities, psychological giants. Not tall bodies, inflated selfhood. Mighty men, men of renown. That's power without wisdom, fame without alignment, strength without humility. Meaning, civilizations producing heroes, rulers, elites, icons, but not awakened beings. This is ego dominance at scale. What Genesis 6 verse 1 to 4 is really saying. Genesis 6 is not about angels having sex with humans. It's about higher human capacities merging with ego identity, producing inflated selfhood and distorted power. Let's look at why the name switching matters here. Wherever you see God or Elohim, is diagnosing the human condition. Where you see the Lord capitalized or God capitalized, that's Yahweh. That's the Father responding relationally to preserve life. Same source, different functions. Genesis 6:5, and God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. Notice the name, God, Elohim. This is diagnosis, not reaction. Meaning, source is observing the condition of consciousness, not responding emotionally. Wickedness of man was great. Wickedness here does not mean moral depravity. It means distortion, misalignment, deviation. Meaning, ego-based consciousness has become dominant and normalized. In the earth means embodied human experience. Meaning, distortion is no longer occasional. It's shaping daily life, culture, systems. Every imagination of the thoughts of his heart. Imagination is inner narrative. Heart is core orientation, not emotions alone. Meaning, humanity's inner storytelling has become self-referential and fear-driven. Only evil continually. Evil here means misdirected, not monstrous. Meaning, perception is trapped in separation thinking, survival, domination, fear, control. This is a state, not a verdict. Genesis 6:6. And it repented the Lord that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart. Notice the name shift. The Lord capitalized, Yahweh. Now the text moves from diagnosis to relational response. It repented the Lord. This does not mean God regretted creation. The Hebrew means was moved, was pained, was grieved. Meaning, life is impacted by the distortion of its own expression. Not angry, not vengeful, affected. That he had made man on the earth. Made is expressed. Man is conscious participation. Meaning, life grieves that its expression is being lived disconnected from itself. Grieved him at his heart. This is relational language. Meaning, life feels the weight of fragmentation from within the human story, not above it. Genesis 6:7, and the Lord said, I will destroy man whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast and creeping thing, and the fowls of the air, for it repented me that I have made them. This verse must be read symbolically, or it becomes incoherent. Let's take it line by line. I will destroy. I will destroy here is to wipe away, to remove, to undo a state. Meaning, life will end a mode of consciousness, not annihilate humanity, not kill people. From the face of the earth, face is outward expression. Meaning, distorted consciousness will no longer be allowed to dominate lived experience. Man, beast, creeping thing, fowls. These are layers of instinct and impulse, reasoning identity, instinctual drives, habitual patterns, reactive thoughts. Meaning the entire distorted operating system is being reset. Genesis 6:8, but Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. Notice the Lord capitalized again. Grace is relational, not structural. Noah means rest, relief, comfort. Meaning, within widespread distortion, restful awareness still exists. Found grace. Grace is not reward for morality. Grace is alignment recognized. Life preserves what can carry continuity. In the eyes of the Lord, eyes symbolize perception, meaning from the perspective of relational life, Noah is seen as preservable awareness. What Genesis 6 verse 5 to 8 is really saying. Genesis 6 is not about God deciding to kill humanity. It's about life recognizing that a distorted mode of consciousness has reached its limit and preserving what can carry restoration forward. Genesis 6:9, these are the generations of Noah. Generations represent what flows from a state of awareness, meaning we are tracing what restful awareness produces. It says just, perfect in his generations. Just here is aligned, integrated. Perfect means whole, complete, not flawless. Meaning, Noah represents coherent consciousness in a fragmented world. Noah walked with God, continuous alignment, lived awareness, meaning Noah lives from source awareness, not from fear or striving. Genesis 6:10, and Noah begat 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Meaning, awareness, Noah, expresses itself through 3 streams, diverse capacities flowing from a single center, which is unity expressing variety. Genesis 6:11 to 12, the earth also was corrupt before God, and God looked upon the earth and behold it was corrupt. Notice the name God, Elohim. This is structural observation. Earth is embodied human experience. Corrupt is distorted, misaligned. Meaning, source observes that distortion has saturated lived experience. All flesh had corrupted his way. Flesh here is identity built on surface, survival, ego. Meaning, separation-based identity has become the default operating system. Genesis 6:13, and God said unto Noah, the end of all flesh is come before me, and behold, I will destroy them with the earth. The end of all flesh. This is not bodies, not humanity. It means the end of ego-dominated consciousness as the ruling mode. Destroy with the earth. Destroy here is to undo a state. Earth is lived expression, meaning life is ending a way of living, not life itself. Genesis 6:14. Now we see the ark introduced. Make thee an ark of gopher wood. Rooms shalt thou make in the ark, and shall pitch it within and without with pitch. Ark here represents container, structure, boundary. Meaning, awareness must now be contained and protected to survive the reset. Rooms, compartments. Meaning, truth makes room for instincts, emotions, thoughts without letting any dominate. Pitch within and without. Pitch here is sealant, protection. Meaning, boundaries are needed internally and externally to preserve clarity. Genesis 6:15 to 16, the dimensions, the length, breadth, height. Numbers here communicate proportion, not blueprints. Awareness needs balance, not excess, not deficiency. A window shalt thou make. Window here is perception, meaning even in containment, awareness keeps vision. a door in the side. Door is intentional engagement, meaning access to the world is conscious, not reactive. Genesis 6:17, I will bring a flood of waters upon the earth. Waters here is overwhelming emotion, chaos, subconscious content, meaning a surge of undifferentiated experience washes away distorted structures. This is reset, not rage. Genesis 6:18, the covenant. But with thee will I establish my covenant. Covenant is continuity, promise, alignment, meaning life commits to carry awareness through the reset. Genesis 6:19-20. Of every living thing, two of every sort. Animals symbolize instinctual energies, meaning nothing essential is destroyed. Instincts are preserved, not erased, kept in balance. Genesis 6:21, take thou unto thee of all food. Food is nourishment for consciousness, meaning awareness prepares sustenance for the transition. Genesis 6:22, thus did Noah according to all that God commanded him, so did he. Notice the name, God. This is alignment with structure, not emotion, meaning awareness cooperates with the natural order of restoration. What Genesis 6:9-22 is really saying, the ark is not a boat, it's a conscious container, just like the ark of the covenant. It is a conscious container. The flood is not God's anger, it's the washing away of a distorted operating system. Noah represents awareness preserved, so life can begin again. Life doesn't destroy humanity, it resets distortion. Awareness survives by containment, not control. Instincts are preserved when awareness leads. Grace prepares before change arrives. And this family brings us to the end of Genesis 5 and 6. Thank you for listening. And in the next teaching, I will combine Genesis 7, 8, and 9. Because they're all saying the same thing. So I'll combine the three and then we will walk through them together. Thanks for listening, and I will see you in the next teaching.